The project with Arturo began when we visited his exhibition at Sigma Jenkins in 2011, probably around February or March of that year. He didn't have images he was ready to have us work with at the time. He said he was working on those collages and he would send them to us. We opened the crate and there were these 3 collages of very complicated, very intricately interwoven elements. I think to an individual, we all sort of looked at each other and thought, it can be done, but it's going to be hard. The methodology or the procedure for working on this involved initially taking his collages and making tracings on mylars of each of the individual pieces, essentially breaking it apart, thinking in terms of how each one of those elements would be created, would be printed. And as we made these tracings of those processes, of those shapes, we would letter in each one of those shapes, okay, this is going to be etching, this is going to be relief, et cetera, et cetera. And then each of us printers, we sort of had our role to play and our shapes to produce.
Arturo's original seemed so much about texture, so much about color, so we really wanted to maximize that. We didn't want like a whole bottom section to be just one particular medium. It was really about balancing everything, and he kind of had this kind of rhythm to everything, be it the color, be it the mark making, and just a variety of everything.
We were really stunned by his own method, his own working method of making these extraordinarily complex collages out of all of these different painted, torn, twisted pieces of paper that came together.
We made digital printouts, and then essentially everyone just put a different colored thumbtack into the parts that they wanted to tackle. And so, you know, we all got so used to working on these little individual pieces that when it came time to put it all together, that was sort of like when the project became, you know, a full-on collaboration.
It went from Bill, who made the plates, and then it went from him to like Anne and Sarah and Kristen, everyone really who made the print. And then it came to me where I cut it out and backed it. And then it came to me and Kristen where we would, you know, put it onto the map. And then it had this whole other process of getting pochoired and going back through the dry mount and getting the felt on it.
In places where there's watery tonalities, and also like in this big one, these beautiful black areas that look like graphite, those things lent themselves to etching. But areas that are flat, that are flatter, that was perfect for relief printing. But then Justin did some really sort of wonderful things that might surprise you, that they had been linoleum, because you can actually scratch into linoleum and make something look like a brush stroke.
Actually, the collagraphs were most interesting for me because those are printed in Talio, the way etching plates are, but they're made by building up. So you're using mediums and grits and sands. There are quite a few in Richard that are printed collagraph that were just really beautiful and fitting when we looked at the collage and then looked at the print.
Reproducing the look of each of these individual elements was not quite the problem as was how it's all going to fit together. In the smallest one, Giuseppe, there are 51 individual pieces that were printed in these different types of print media. Johannes, the middle-sized one, or the tall vertical one, there are 106 elements that had to be recreated, printed, trimmed out, pieced together, and applied. The large print, there are 77 pieces.
And it was fun. It was sort of fun to see those packages and those envelopes. It was like Christmas, you know, like stacking up.
One of the things I think that I hadn't mentioned that I think goes a long way to holding these things together is the application in the center of the felt piece. We had the collages without his felt pieces being attached, so we can see them without the felt, and they're nice, but once you put that felt on, it's a focal point. It allows these other little pieces to kind of play around that central red shape. And it gives it another dimension, another physical dimension, because as I said, this is a 1/4 inch felt.
Pochoir is stenciling, basically. It's a French way of saying stenciling. And it's a way to sort of both hand paint and addition something really consistently, since you're working through the same stencil with the same batch of ink every time. And it really added a lot to this project in that we were able to be more flexible about what we put on what plate and the way we assembled it. Some of the pochoir was done to elements before they went onto the collage, and some of it was done overlapping several elements after they had already been put on the collage. I have been a printer for probably 2.5 years now. It definitely is the most challenging project, the most involved, the most frustrating at times, and also just the most number of people that I've ever seen involved in a single project. The scale of the work, the scale of the people involved, the different techniques, the materials we've been through, this just trumps it all.
I had access when I was studying printmaking to the whole archive of the Ken Tyler graphic studio. And I remember seeing James Rosenquist prints that were dubbed the world's largest print, but they also didn't register to me that it really was a print. I'd been studying printmaking, and you see it kind of what printmaking can happen when the artist and a person that really knows what they're doing, a master printer, get together and kind of really just run with ideas and how to make images, and you invent ways to make images along the way. And this project, to me, you really got to see the just excitement of printmaking, and I guess that's what these are. They got everything that you could ever want in a print is in one of these things, and you just kind of, you get to kind of revisit it in different spots, and there's different avenues, and I just turning around and looking at these is it's nostalgic already, I guess. But
I've been at Pace for 25 years, and another about 8 or 10 years prior to that, then graduate school before that, and undergraduate school, so a while. This is the most complicated, the longest, in ways maybe the most gratifying.
I've been a printer since for 11 years.
I've been a printer at Pace for 8 years, and then 4 other shops previous to that. In my opinion, this is the most complicated, epic project I've ever been a part of.
35 years. Yeah. It is great to see this one finished and to see them all up here, because it all was one project, and that's the way Arturo viewed it. And that's the way he made it. They seem really a piece together now.